From legendary managers leaving the game to club icons saying their final goodbyes, these are the farewells in football that hit the hardest. Kicking things off with one of the Premier League's greatest coaches, Jurgen Klopp. After nearly a decade at Liverpool, Klopp announced he'd be stepping down. His final game as Liverpool's boss, a memorable 2-0 win against Wolves. After the game, Klopp took one last walk onto the pitch to say goodbye to the fans, marking the end of an era. You could see tears everywhere, in the crowd, in the players' eyes, especially Trent and Van Dijk. During his farewell speech, Klopp even got the fans chanting for his successor Arne Slot, who took over this season. Talk about a proper send-off. Now, from one Dortmund legend to another, Marco Reus. You see, Reus spent an unbelievable 22 years at Dortmund. I mean, that's some next-level loyalty right there, man. He had offers from some of the biggest clubs in the world, but even as teammates moved on, he stayed true to his boyhood club. Winning trophies wasn't what mattered to him. That loyalty made his farewell even more powerful. In his final game at Signal Iduna Park, Reus went out in style, delivering an assist and scoring a beautiful free-kick goal. Trust me, it doesn't get any better than that. Anyways, in the 80th minute, he was subbed off and his teammates lined up to give him a guard of honour. As he walked off the pitch, you could see the tears in his eyes. My man was really emotional. But technically, his final game was against Real Madrid in the Champions League final. And as fate would have it, Real Madrid also had a legend saying goodbye that season, Toni Kroos. The 34-year-old shocked everyone by announcing he'd retire from football after the Euros. That meant his last game at the Santiago Bernabeu had already come and gone, and Real Madrid gave him the farewell of a lifetime. In their final league game against Betis, the fans pulled off an unforgettable tribute. A massive tifo for Kroos filled the stands, and a young fan held up a banner with the most touching message you could imagine. Both Madrid and Betis players joined in with a guard of honour, and after the game, Kroos' teammates lifted him into the air, celebrating his incredible career. Kroos was clearly emotional, but it was his kids who really got to him. They were in tears, and seeing them so upset broke him down completely. But it's tough to say which goodbye hit harder, Kroos's or Benzema's. Karim Benzema joined Real Madrid from Lyon way back in 2009. Back then, he was just a young, shy kid with loads of potential. Fast forward, and that kid grew into a true legend at Real Madrid. By the 2022-2023 season, he was already the third highest goal scorer in the club's history. Unreal! After winning the Ballon d'Or and leading Madrid to their 14th Champions League title, Benzema dropped a massive announcement. His final home game against Athletic Bilbao would be his last in the iconic white jersey. And fittingly, Benzema being Benzema, he scored in that last game for the club. Carlo Ancelotti was watching closely, waiting for Benzema's big moment. The second Benzema scored, everyone knew his time was up on the pitch. Look at the whole stadium applauding Benzema. What a way to go out. But saying goodbye isn't easy, right? Especially when you're a legend like John Terry. Can you imagine spending your entire career at just one club? That's exactly what John Terry did. For 19 incredible years, he was the heart and soul of Chelsea. Together, they conquered Europe, won multiple Premier League titles, and cemented their legacy in football history. By the 2016-17 season, though, things started shifting for Terry. With Antonio Conte as the new manager, his playing time was getting shorter and shorter. He knew the moment had come to hang up his boots. A few weeks before the season ended, Terry announced his departure. He said, "Chelsea and I have always had a special bond, and that won't change. We had some great conversations, but after careful thought, I've decided it's time to move on." Mr. Chelsea was leaving. Even though he wasn't playing much, Conte knew just how much Terry meant to the fans. So, in his final home game against Sunderland, they gave him a tribute like no other. They subbed him off in the 26th minute, a beautiful nod to his iconic number 26 jersey. It was a heartwarming moment, and you could see the tears in Terry's eyes. A true captain, leader, legend. And speaking of emotional goodbyes, Chelsea fans didn't have to wait long for another tear-jerker. Just a few years later, Thiago Silva got his own unforgettable send-off. The Brazilian centre-back was only at Chelsea for 4 years, but he absolutely loved it there, and the club loved him back. He helped them win the Champions League and a few other trophies, and if you ask most Chelsea fans, they'll tell you he's a club legend. His last game as a Chelsea player was a 2-1 win. After the game, he and his family walked onto the pitch through a guard of honour made by his teammates, while the fans sang his song as loud as they could. The legendary defender gave a very emotional speech, with tears in his eyes. But he said, "This isn't goodbye, it's see you later." So, he might come back to Chelsea in the future, maybe as a coach. But for now, he's playing for Fluminense in Brazil, where it all began. Now, another iconic centre-back who bid farewell to the Premier League was Raphael Varane. He joined Manchester United in 2021, so his time there was brief, just 3 years, but you could tell he formed a real bond with the club. Varane's final appearance at Old Trafford as a United player was during a Premier League match against Newcastle. He didn't play, but he showed up to say goodbye to the fans. In a fun throwback, he even recreated the selfie he took the day he was announced as a United player, bringing his journey full circle. After the game, Varane stayed on the pitch long after everyone else had left, soaking in the magic of Old Trafford one last time. But perhaps the best part, Varane wrapped up his United career with a trophy. In his very last game for United, he put in a stellar performance to help the Red Devils beat their rivals and lift the FA Cup. Now, if you thought Varane's farewell was emotional, wait until you hear about the god of football himself. Yep, Zlatan Ibrahimovic knows how to make an exit like no one else. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, a true legend of the game, has been around for so long that he made his debut before many of today's top players were even born. Zlatan played for some of the biggest clubs in the world: Manchester United, Barcelona, PSG, and even LA Galaxy. But after his stint in the US, he wasn't done proving himself. So, he made a comeback to AC Milan and reminded everyone that age is just a number, clinching the Scudetto at an incredible 41 years old. But eventually the injuries started catching up to him, and with Milan's last home game approaching, Zlatan made a bombshell announcement. "This season will be my last in the game. The king is bowing out." The entire football world was stunned. We knew this day would come, but not like this. For Milan's final home game against Verona, the club paid a special tribute to him. As he stepped onto the pitch, the whole stadium erupted, chanting his name, saying their farewells. So even gods have feelings, huh? The last time I saw a grown man cry this much, it was Paulo Dybala. See, Paulo Dybala and Juventus go way back. He joined Juve from Palermo in 2015, and from day one he was a fan favourite. For 7 seasons, he dazzled on the pitch, scoring over 100 goals and delivering magic moments that had Juventus fans chanting his name every week. But at the end of the 2021-22 season, Dybala dropped a bombshell. He wasn't renewing his contract. He said it was for personal reasons, but you could see the emotion. It was one of the hardest days of his life. In his final game, Dybala couldn't hold back the tears. La Gioia was heartbroken. It's just something about the Italians, man. They really know how to give their legends a proper send-off, just like they did for one of their legends a couple of years back. After a whopping 25 seasons with AS Roma, Francesco Totti announced in 2018 that he'd be hanging up his boots at the end of the season. Totti was a one-club man. For 25 years, he was loyal to Roma. Even when Real Madrid and Barcelona came knocking, he said no. The Roma fans knew they had to give their legend the perfect send-off. And on his final game, it was one of the most beautiful scenes in football history. Even Totti couldn't hold back the tears. It was incredibly emotional. And while Totti's farewell was all about loyalty and love, over in Barcelona, Xavi's send-off had a bit more drama. See, Xavi said goodbye to his boyhood club Barcelona not once, but twice. The first time was as a player in 2015. He came back as a coach in 2021 and led them to their first league title in 4 years and the Spanish Super Cup. What made Xavi's farewell even more emotional was how it happened. He'd already announced he was leaving, but the club president begged him to stay an extra year. Because of his love for Barcelona, Xavi agreed. But just weeks later, he was sacked and replaced by Hansi Flick. That's not how you treat a club legend, right? Even Barcelona fans were calling out the president. But despite all that, Xavi refused to hold a grudge. He released a statement thanking the fans, players, and even the president. He even managed the team's last game of the season against Sevilla. Since the game was away, Xavi couldn't say goodbye to the home fans, but some Barcelona supporters showed their love for him in the stands. The players also paid tribute. Fermin Lopez hugged Xavi after scoring the winning goal, and Ter Stegen said they all wanted to win for him. Luckily, they did. But just when Barca fans thought they'd seen it all with Xavi's goodbye, the club hit them with the biggest heartbreak of all. Messi was leaving. Messi, the GOAT, and Barcelona were like one and the same. Nobody could even picture him in another jersey. But in 2021, things got rough for Barcelona financially, and the club had to make the heartbreaking decision to let Messi go to keep themselves afloat. PSG swooped in and signed him, and as Messi spent his final hours at Barcelona, he knew it was time for that unimaginable goodbye. Man, I still get chills just thinking about it. Messi leaving Barcelona, that shook us all. But hey, if you made it this far, you're clearly a fan of epic stories, or you just love the drama. Either way, why not make it official? Like, subscribe, and join the Free Kick Corner Squad, because trust me, you don't want to miss any of our uploads.